الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. Alright, so we left off at verse 74 where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still continuing. He's talking about hypocrites, and then we move to talking about fighting in the path of Allah. So he says, فَلْيُقَاتِلْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يَشْرُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا بِالْآخِرَةِ. Let those who are ready to give up this life for the hereafter fight in the cause of Allah. So basically what it means is that anyone who's willing to trade, the word here is actually, kind of sell the life of this world in exchange for the next life. So this is kind of the way that it works. It's like a trade. You have to give up this life in order to get the next life. So anyone who's completely ready to give up this life and get a guaranteed paradise in the hereafter, let them go and fight in the cause of Allah. وَمَن يُقَاتِلْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَيُقْتَلْ أَوْ يَغْلِبْ فَسَوْفَ نُؤْتِيهِ أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. Whoever fights for the cause of Allah, whether they are killed or are victorious, we will honor them with a great reward. So basically it's saying whoever does that, what Allah mentioned previously, without any other motive, meaning with full sincerity, that you fight in the cause of Allah, whether you are killed while fighting in the cause of Allah, or whether you're victorious and you gain success in this world as well, we will honor them with a great reward. A great reward referring to the next life. So if you're victorious here, you'll still get the reward in the next life. So you get double victory. If you are killed in this life, you will still get the victory in the next life. So Allah is motivating people to go ahead and fight in the cause of Allah. وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. What is wrong with you? You do not fight for the cause of Allah. What is the cause of Allah for a moment? Let's start. Basically, it's to protect Islam. The cause of Allah is when people are trying to destroy Islam and eliminate the ability of people to receive the message of Islam. You have to basically, when they're forming a barrier to prevent Islam from, reaching the people, jihad and fighting in the path of Allah breaks that barrier down. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءِ وَالْوِلْدَانِ الَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا مِنْ هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ الظَّالِمِ أَهْلُهَا. Also, reason number two, also you fight for the oppressed men, the oppressed women, the oppressed children who cry out. They're in desperation. They're crying out, "Our Lord, save us from this land of oppressors." Now this statement is general. It has a general import and has a specific import. The specific import is that the Muslims who were left behind in Makkah and did not migrate, or the people who accepted Islam in Makkah after the migration, and the Muslims had already moved to Medina, what's the situation? The situation is horrendous. They're being persecuted. They're being tortured. They're not allowed to even pray at the Kaaba. They're not even allowed to openly be Muslim because they're constantly being persecuted. So what are they doing when they're being persecuted? They're calling out and they're making dua to Allah. "Oh our Lord, save us from this land, save us from these oppressive people." Now there's two things here. Number one is if you look, it specifically mentions the men who are doing this, the men who are saying this, the women who are saying this, the children who are saying this. Allah could have simply said the people who are saying this. He didn't say the people who are saying this. He specified three categories of people. Why? Because there is a need to motivate people to get into their emotions and say, "Look at these oppressed people. They're calling out." It's not just, if you just said people, you say, okay, you might think it's a bunch of guys calling out. Okay, it's sad to see people being oppressed. But throughout history, even today, nothing has changed. When women are being oppressed, it's a different situation. When children are being oppressed, it's a different situation. It hits your heart. If you have any care or concern for people in the world, it hits your heart. Like exactly what's happening in Palestine right now. It's not just men who are being killed, women are being killed. They're being persecuted. Children are being killed. They're being persecuted. So it brings something in the heart and say, look, there are people in Mecca, and like there are people everywhere else in the world where there's oppression. And they're calling out. They're making this dua to Allah. Duas like this. Oh Allah, help us. Save us from this save us from these oppressive people. So now Allah is mentioning the dua of the oppressed in order to motivate heroes to rise up and do something about it. Because it's their job, it's their responsibility. Someone needs to step up and take the responsibility. وَاجْعَلْ لَنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ وَلِيًّا وَاجْعَلْ لَنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ نَصِيرًا. Send a rescuer for us from you. Send a helper for us from you. So this is part of their dua. They're still asking Allah, oh Allah, send somebody to come and help us. So in the same time, on the one hand, he's saying, why aren't you fighting in the cause of Allah? And on the other hand, why won't you fight in the cause of Allah? Look at the situation. Go do something. You're just gonna sit there. Don't you have any honor? Don't you have any respect? Do something. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in order to motivate people to make a change, and make a difference. And again, in their circumstances, they had the ability to do something. Now if you try to apply this to the modern day, and you say, okay, what if there's nothing we can do? What if we don't have the ability to make affect any change, physically? There's other forms of fighting, intellectual combat. There is convincing people to change their opinion, whatever it may be. There's still other ways to do it when you're not able to do something physically. In the context where you are able to do something physically, you don't shy away. So Allah is saying, why would you run away when you have the ability to make a direct change, but you don't want to do it because you're scared? And this is the problem. People are afraid. They don't want to take the consequences of having to do something. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا يُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Believers fight for the cause of Allah. So again, what is the cause of Allah? In general, fighting for the cause of Allah is to promote goodness. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا يُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ الطَّاغُوتِ. Disbelievers fight for the cause of the devils. Basically to promote evil. Taghut, I'm still debating whether this is a good translation or not. I probably would have modified this translation to basically fight for the cause of evil. Would have been sufficient. But I already made the questions, I didn't want to redo it again. Anyways, so contrasting the believers, what they're supposed to be fighting for, the disbelievers, what they're fighting for. Now here's the problem. Muslims never want to fight. But if you have people who are fighting constantly for evil, how do you stop them? You can't always stop them by saying, you know what? Can you please stop doing that? Are they going to stop? No. Not every bully is going to just stop by saying, can you please stop bullying the other person? Sometimes you need to step in, and somebody needs to step in with some level of authority or power and put the other person in their place. So Allah is saying, in those circumstances, somebody has to step up and do that. فَقَاتِلُوا أَوْلِيَاءَ الشَّيْطَانِ. So fight against Satan's allies. These people are basically, they're listening to the whispers of shaitan, doing evil things. And they got a whole group of people supporting them. So, somebody has to fight against them. And that's what the believer's job is to do. إِنَّ كَيْدَ الشَّيْطَانِ كَانَ ضَعِيفًا. Satan's plot is weak. Right, so this whole tactic that Shaitan is whispering to people, it's actually not that strong. So you don't need to be afraid of it, as some people are. So this is interesting, one of the tafseers I was going through, it talks about how in some religions, they show Shaitan, even today in like comic books, in movies, in anime, like so many other things, they show Shaitan as being like this really powerful force, and he's like, almost like divine or godlike or something like that. In Islam, this is not Shaitan. Shaitan is actually very weak. His tactics are weak. They work on people because the people are weak. When people are strong, they don't work. So it all comes back down to your faith in Allah and your strength as a believer. So it never doesn't say that Shaitan is so powerful. He's overtaking you. No. Shaitan is weak. He can only whisper to the people who are weak. And he whispers everyone, but the only ones he can affect are the ones who are weak. So the Islamic conception of Satan, of Shaytan's whispers, very different than what you may see in some movies or something like that. So it's very important to keep that in mind, because we get influenced by the things that we watch. We get influenced by the books that we read. We get influenced by the people that we talk to. It's very important to correct and modify some of those misconceptions or those conceptions we have in order to bring them in line with the proper Islamic way of thinking. Let's move on to the next section, section 11. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ قِيلَ لَهُمْ كُفُّوا أَيْدِيَكُمْ وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. Have you, it's talking to the listener, meaning anyone who's reading this book or listening to this book, it's not talking to the Prophet Muhammad. Have you not seen those Muslims who were told, do not fight, instead pray and give charity? Now, if you read this without the commentary, you'd be like, who are these people? Basically, we have to go back and look at the context here. So there was a group of Muslims, they were told when they were in Mecca, before the migration, they were told that, you know what? You need to be patient. Now they're in Mecca, the Muslims, and they're being persecuted. And they said, come on, Prophet, let us fight these people. We want to fight them. The Prophet said, just wait. Don't fight right now. Do not fight. This is the Prophet telling them. Do not fight. Instead, just focus on prayer, focus on giving charity. Right? So now this is the Meccan phase. It's referring to the past before this. But it's saying before the migration to Medina, there was a group of people among the Muslims. And they were like, man, look what they're doing to us. We want to get them. We want to do something. Those people are like, hold me back, man, hold me back. These are the opposite. These people are like, don't hold me back. The Prophet's holding them back. Do not fight. Allah has not given you the permission to fight back. You're going to sit there and you're going to take the persecution. You're going to focus on praying. You're going to focus on giving charity. That's what you're supposed to do right now. And they're upset. Man, why can't we fight? So it's talking about them. It's, have you seen those people? You remember those people who were just like, you know what? I don't want to just pray. I don't want to just give charity. We need to fight these people. Look what they're doing to us. So this is the context. This is the setup. Then Allah says, فَلَمَّا كُتِبَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقِتَالُ إِذَا فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُمْ يَخْشَوْنَ النَّاسَ كَخَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ أَوْ أَشَدَّ خَشْيَةً. Then once the order came to fight, this is after they migrated to Medina. And what happened in Medina? What was the circumstances of change in Medina? The situation was better for the Muslims in Mecca or better for the Muslims in Medina? Which one? In Medina, absolutely. In Medina, they have their own state. They have more followers. They have their own constitution. They have their own army. They have situations, they got their own city. Mecca, they were just this little minority. They're not in any position of authority, and they're being persecuted. So the situation in Medina is much better for the Muslims. It's not easy, but it's much better for the Muslims than the situation in Mecca. So Allah said, once the order came to fight, a group among them, a weak group among them, and this is Muslims, they were afraid of those people. They were afraid of the people that were supposed to fight, the Quraysh. The same ones that they wanted to fight before, when they were in Mecca, now they're afraid of them. And they're so scared, they're so afraid of those people as Allah should be feared. You should be afraid of Allah and disobeying Allah. Instead, they're scared of these people. Or even more, they're even more scared of these people than they're scared of Allah. So this is why they're being blamed twice. The first thing that they're being blamed is that when Allah tells them, now's the time to fight, they don't want to fight. Problem number one. Problem number two, you are the same people who, when you were told not to fight, you're like, let me out of it. I want to fight. So it's like, are you the same people? You're the same people a few years ago who were saying, you know what? Let me out of it. Let me go and fight. And now, when you get the permission to fight, you don't want to do anything. Allah's saying, what's wrong with you people? Can't you be consistent in what you're doing? وَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا لِمَ كَتَبْتَ عَلَيْنَا الْقِتَالَ لَوْلَا أَخَّرْتَنَا إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ قَرِيبٍ. They said, probably in their own hearts, maybe they said it out loud too, but they said to themselves, oh our Lord, why did you command us to fight? Like so quickly. Why now? If only you had postponed it for us for a little longer. Why do they want it to be postponed? Procrastination. People don't want to do something that they're afraid of. So it's like, you know what? They would have to risk their lives if they're going to fight. And they're hoping, you know what? The problem with fighting right now, is that were the Muslims equally equipped, less equipped, or more equipped than the Quraysh and the enemies that are against Islam? Which one? Equal, less equipped, or more equipped in terms of warfare?
Less equipped.
Less equipped. By a little bit or by a lot? By a lot. Less equipped by a lot. So what are these people saying? If only this command could have came a little bit later, hopefully we'll be in a better position. We got more soldiers, we got more money, we got more armor, we got better circumstances. You know, it's a lot easier. This is everyone wants that, right? Everyone's like, you know what? Once we're in a position of power, when we have 3 times the number of soldiers that the other side has, we're ready to go to war. But when they have 3 times the amount of soldiers that we have, well, Allah, can you wait a little bit? Please don't tell us to do this right now. So this is cowardice, right? They're not courageous at all. That's problem number 1. What's problem number 2? I kind of said it before. You're on fire. I'm going to let somebody else answer, but you got like 3 answers in a row already. I was like pouring water on the other people. All right, go ahead, fire. Go ahead.
They don't want to risk their lives.
The what?
They don't want to risk their lives.
It's true, they don't want to risk their lives, okay? So that's problem number 1. They're not courageous, they don't want to risk their lives. What's the second problem with that? Something to do with the past. What's their second problem? What was their attitude before? Their attitude was when they were way outnumbered, more than in Medina. When they were in Mecca, they had nothing. Completely outnumbered. And what were they doing? Let me have him, I'm going to fight him. The Prophet said, no, you're not. And now, you're in a better situation. And now the Prophet says, okay, go ahead, time to fight. And they're like, no, we don't want to fight. So, they're all talk. Their problem is, they were all talk. And that's the problem with a lot of people. They talk big, they talk a big game, but when it comes to doing something, they're never there. They don't show up. And that's why, this is a huge lesson. So when Allah's criticizing them, what we need to do when we're looking at tafsir, we need to say, how does this apply back to us? If these people talk the big game, if the Prophet really let them fight when they were in Mecca, this kind of group of people, how successful do you think they would have been? They just talk big. If they can't fight when they actually have an army, how would they have fought when they didn't even have an army? They wouldn't have been able to do anything. Because some people, they talk a big game, and then they're like, okay, green light, go ahead. All of a sudden, you see them disappear. Say, well, what happened? Person's gone. You will see some people like that all the time. You don't want to become one of those people. May Allah protect us from becoming one of those people. So this is so we wouldn't have to risk our lives. قُلْ مَتَاعُ الدُّنْيَا قَلِيلٌ وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِمَنِ اتَّقَى وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ فَتِيلًا. Say, addressed to the Prophet, tell them, the enjoyment of this world is so little, but the hereafter is far better for those who are mindful of Allah, those who really are conscious of Allah. And none of you will be wronged, even a speck, even a tiny little bit. So the response back to these people who are hesitating and saying, no, we don't want to do it, we're not willing to sacrifice or put ourselves in danger. The response is, you're so attached to this world that it's preventing you, but you're forgetting that the enjoyments in this life, they're actually, compared to the hereafter, they're minuscule, they're tiny. So don't be stuck into this mentality of, you know what, it's all about my life, my dunya. You can't be stuck in that mentality. Then he says, أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يُدْرِكْكُمُ الْمَوْتُ وَلَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُرُوجٍ مُشَيَّدَةٍ Wherever you may be, death will reach you. Okay, which means anywhere you are, when it's your time to die, you cannot escape death. So this is connected to the previous verse, talking to the same people. So why don't you go fight now? Allah's telling you, you're supposed to go out and fight. If you're so afraid of death, don't forget, you can die anywhere at any time, no matter what you do. Even if you were in fortified towers, if you think about what was the safest place 1400 years ago, from a strategic military perspective. These are a fortress. Has anyone ever visited like a city, an old city, and there's like castles and fortresses, and you get like to walk around and tour them or something like that? Anyone been there?
Yes.
I know you have. We went together. And we went together, Bosnia, right? Recently. Where did you go? Which fortress did you see? Turkey. Anyone else? Turkey? Spain? Spain too, that's right.
Egypt, yeah.
Egypt, yes. Many fortresses in Egypt. So if you go in those places, you see that if you go into one of those towers, right, unless the enemy has a catapult, and the Quraysh didn't have catapults, by the way. So you got bows and arrows, and you got this giant, well-fortified thing, and you got like a little tiny lookout area. You can shoot your arrows from there, and the arrows can barely make it in. You got the laser dot sight to be able to make it in there. So it's really hard to get you. So you're in a very good defensive position, and the walls are so fortified, they're so strong. People are not going to be able to get through. So if you're in one of those towers, you feel very comfortable, at ease. You're like, no, nobody can get me. I'm protected. But you know what? If it's your time of death, and Allah has decided, no, it is time for this person to die, either an arrow can come right through that little tiny opening, get you, or you can have a heart attack. Number one leading cause of death in this country today, or in the world today, cardiovascular disease. You could have anything can happen to you, where you literally just drop down and die. How many people are there that they look completely healthy? They're eating super healthy diets. They got all the low sugar, low carb foods. They got all the, grass-fed, organic. Not that this is bad, we should be doing this anyways, but the grass-fed, the organic, the no processed food, every diet is perfect. They got, breathing, inhaling, special oxygen. There used to be oxygen bars, 15 years ago, died out. I don't know if it's trend anymore, died out. But anyways, they have all this stuff going on, you can still die like that. When it's your time for death, you're going to die. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many things you have and defense around you and all of that. And the same thing is that people are always trying to protect themselves somehow. Even, it's in Arizona or New Mexico. It's the largest cryogenics laboratory for freezing bodies of rich people.
Arizona.
Who basically, Arizona? Yeah, Arizona. Basically what they do is people will pay, say, when I die, I want you to freeze my body and keep it frozen, and you have to pay this massive fee and put it in a fund because they have to pay for all the electricity and everything to keep you frozen. And they're hoping that in the future, somehow, they'll be able to revive you when the technology improves so that you can continue living. Let's just say, somehow the technology comes out. You say, okay, whoever got frozen, like there was this movie called Demolition Man where they freeze people and they bring them back to life and all. So you've seen that, huh? Yeah. Smiling. So, let's just say that technology comes out. You think this laboratory can't be blown up? People can't break into it, disconnect all the power? There's still no way. There's so many ways in which you could die, no matter how many potential precautions that you take. Right? So it doesn't make any difference, no matter what you do. When it's your time of death, you're going to die. وَإِن تُصِبْهُمْ حَسَنَةٌ يَقُولُوا هَذِهِ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. When something good happens to them, they, the hypocrites, they say, this is from Allah. Now this is not a good, normally when you say this is from Allah, you think it's a good statement. In this context, it's not a good statement. So when something good happens to the Muslims, what are they saying? They say, this is from Allah. This is not something the Prophet did. The Prophet didn't lead the Muslims to victory. Islam didn't help them at all. This is just Allah's the one who just did this. You guys have no virtue or special privilege in what happened. وَإِن تُصِبْهُمْ سَيِّئَةٌ يَقُولُوا هَذِهِ مِنْ عِندِكَ. But when some evil hits them, they say, because they have this hatred for Islam, the hatred for the Prophet in their heart, they say, this is from you. So they blame the Prophet. Look, people died because of you. We lost the war because of you, and because of Islam, and because of the Muslims. So these hypocrites are criticizing the Prophet. قُلْ كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِندِ اللَّهِ. Say, O Prophet, everything is from Allah. Good and bad, everything is from Allah. فَمَا لِهَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ لَا يَكَادُونَ يَفْقَهُونَ حَدِيثًا. So what is the matter with these people? What's wrong with these people? They can barely understand anything. Basically, it's so clear. Allah's in control of everything. And what they do, they flip things around. They say, oh yeah, if something good happens, oh, this is from Allah. You guys didn't deserve this. Something bad happens, oh look, this is your fault. So you're going to see inshallah next week, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next verse is going to flip this around and put it back on them. But with that time, we have to, what we'll do is we'll skip we'll call the adhan, and we'll skip the, what's it called? The kahoot. We'll postpone it for next week, inshallah. Okay? So keep in mind these verses, and we'll do the kahoot next week, for this week, including next week's kahoot. Inshallah. Alright, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. And we have some cookies for those of you who attended inside the cafe. Assalamu alaikum.